guilty, 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 guilty.
Wow, there she is, Jodi Hildebrandt. She pled guilty 4 times to 4 different counts in her case.
So normally we hear when people go to trial, even if they do something, they plead not guilty. I got a ticket once for having my high beams on, and I was even advised at the time a decade ago to plead not guilty. So this is really weird, isn't it?
Well, this goes far beyond you forgetting to have your lights on, and there are a lot of questions in this case. So let's get into it.
So Jodi Hildebrandt just pled guilty 4 times. I'm Lainey Law.
And I'm attorney Andrew Myers.
So this is really crazy to me because we normally see, at least, in most true crime cases that we hear about, the person pleading not guilty, regardless of, what evidence is out there and what the facts are. So can you give us a little explanation on this?
Well, a lot of times when you go to court, you get a new criminal client. And as a defense attorney, you take a look at everything. You get discovery from the prosecution. And in this case, the Utah county prosecutor in Washington County would have given the attorney for Jodi Hildebrandt all the discovery. And you take a look at it and you sit down with the client and you determine, how strong is the evidence, what's going on in this case. Do you want to plead guilty? Do you want me to talk to the prosecutor and see if we can work out some kind of a plea deal? So sometimes, you plan for trial. You don't think the state has a strong case. Your client thinks they have a strong case. You have a lot of strong evidence on your side, and or the witnesses that the state has, can easily be discredited. There may be some impeachment material. Whatever the case may be, at some point you make the decision, are we going to try this case? Or sometimes there are factors in a case in which the defendant and the attorney sit down and discuss and come to an agreement as to whether they should plea. And that's what happened in this case. And one of the things that people are saying, and we're going to take a look at there are a lot of questions surrounding this case, and I narrowed it down to 5 really important issues we're going to take a look at. But one of the things that came down to in this case was that the evidence is very strong, apparently, and we don't know because I haven't seen it all, and neither of you, but apparently the evidence is so strong, and neither Jodi Hildebrandt or Ruby Franke wanted to put the children through a trial because the facts of this case, as we talked about in a previous episode, are just horrifying. Wouldn't you agree?
Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I do find it interesting. I mean, we talked about it in our last episode. We went into a little bit of a deep dive on it. By the way, for anybody watching, that video did get demonetized and suppressed. So if you happen to see this one, and if we don't have that same issue, consider checking that one out. We decided not to, try to work on fixing it too much, but we're going to be trying to appease the AIs and whatever may be watching this episode. So thank you.
As you know, I'm not a big fan of AI. Remember the episode I did where I put all the papers in a blender and turned it on? That's my impression. But anyhow, that's neither here nor there. This is a serious case, and there are some serious questions. But one of the issues with this plea bargain, and the same thing with Ruby Franke, is that usually, I started to describe the process. Usually, and I'd say 99% of the time, you arrive at a plea bargain with or I should call it a recommendation for a sentence. Usually, the prosecution offers you a certain defined sentence. Well, all right, we'll give you 1 year suspended for a guilty plea or a admission to sufficient facts. That didn't happen in this case. In this case, Jodi Hildebrandt agreed to tender 4 guilty pleas to 4 counts. 2 of the counts will be dismissed, which is really not relevant. A lot of people think it is, but we'll get into that in a few minutes. So she agreed to plead guilty to 4 counts, second-degree felony in Utah counts. And there's no agreement for the sentence. She and Ruby Franke will be sentenced on February 20th of 2024. So That is one of several really unusual things about this case. The other really unusual thing about this case, and we're going to go through the details, we'll go through them, or at least skim through them, because some of them are pretty awful, is that her own attorney tried to dance back away from it all. In other words, there's a plea agreement with a bunch of terms that are all spelled out, and the particular facts that Jodi Hildebrandt is pleading guilty to are all written out. But her attorney, very surprisingly, tried to back out of it. Here's what he said.
Your Honor, the agreement contains a factual basis. There are a few details in the factual basis that we are not in full agreement with. However, this is a guilty plea. It is not an Alford plea. The factual basis sets forth facts that we agree with, that Ms. Hildebrandt agrees with, that are sufficient for the court to accept her plea with respect to the 4 counts.
Look at her standing there right there. It looks like she's chomping at the bit. She wants to say something, but of course her attorney has said, "Nuh-uh, no, don't say anything." So it seems to me that the attorney is like, he, in my interpretation, I might be wrong, but my interpretation is he really didn't want to say any of that, because a document is a document. If there's a plea and you've signed it, which she has, that document is a document. And he's saying, oh, well, there's certain details that we really don't agree. What? How can you present a signed document in a court and then try and back out of it and say, oh, well, Your Honor, we didn't really mean it. Oh, wait, yeah, we really did mean it, which is kind of like what he is saying there. You want to take a look at the actual document? Okay, here is the document. This is Jodi Hildebrandt's plea agreement. And you can see there are 1, 2, 3, 4 Class B felonies here in Utah. Count 1, count 2 was eliminated. Count 3, count 4 was eliminated. Count 5 and count 6. And so she's saying that I've received a copy of the information against me. I have read it or have had it read to me, and I understand the nature and elements of the crime to which I am pleading guilty. And there they are, counts 1, 3, 5, and 6. And contrary to what her attorney had just said, that, oh, well, there's some details in there that we don't agree to, she's saying right here, I understand that by pleading guilty, I will be admitting that I committed the crimes listed above. I stipulate and agree that the following facts described by my conduct and the conduct of other persons for which I am criminally liable, these facts provide a basis for the court to accept my guilty plea and prove the elements of the crimes to which I'm pleading guilty. So there they are. We read through them in the previous episode. They're very similar. They're not identical, but they're similar to the charges
Yeah.
in
I
the
have to
Ruby.
interrupt. I have
Yep.
to ask,
Yep.
did her attorney, wouldn't she have consulted her attorney before signing this in the first place? So
Of
what
course.
sense does it, so what sense does it make for him to be saying they don't agree with everything? If they didn't agree with something, wouldn't they just have things adjusted?
Douglas Terry is the one we just saw. He is the defense attorney, and there's his wet signature. He signed this, certifying to the court, to answer your question, that he's the attorney. He knows that she has read the statement, or I've read it to her. I've discussed it with her, and I believe that she fully understands the meaning of its contents and is mentally and physically competent, to the best of my knowledge and belief, after an appropriate investigation, the elements of the crime and the factual synopsis of the defendant's criminal conduct are correctly stated. So I don't know what that was when he said, oh, well, the details are not, we don't really, we're going to back away from that, because the last line I didn't read was, and these, along with the other representations and declarations made by the defendant in the foregoing affidavit, are accurate and true. And there is her signature, certifying. I'm not going to read every word because it mirrors what we've already said, but there's her signature saying, look, I signed it. I read it. It's a knowing waiver, and that's her handwriting right there. She signed it there, December 23rd. There's her handwriting. She filled in where she's 54 years of age. She had attended school through 12 plus 7. So what that means, 12 is high school, of course. 7, I assume, 4 years of undergraduate college, and then 3 years of graduate school to get the degree she needed to become a licensed mental health counselor. So, I mean, we're not talking about an uneducated person that doesn't, maybe on a third grade reading level that couldn't understand this. No, 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 no. Of course, she understood every word. And the only other thing I want to go over here is, she waived all these rights. One, she agrees to plead guilty to counts 1, 3, 5, and 6. The state agreed to dismiss counts 2 and 4. 3, there will be a pre-sentencing investigation. We can talk about later if you want. 4, the defendant agrees to serve a prison term. 5, the sentences will be consecutive. So, that is the document itself. They can't back away from it. They can't say, "Oh, well, we didn't read it. We don't know. We can't." Yeah, no, that's silly.
So I guess I have two questions. My first question is, do you think that they are pleading guilty because they think that they're gonna get a worse sentence if they plead not guilty? And then my second question is, do you think that maybe they signed that, but he's saying like, oh, we don't agree with all of that because to try to save face in front of cameras for Jodi?
Well, the second point is interesting. I mean, if you're an attorney and you go into court, your number one duty is to your client. You shouldn't be really playing to the camera. I mean, this goes all the way back to the criticisms in the O.J. Simpson trial where they felt some of the attorneys were playing to the camera. If the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit. I don't know. I'd like to think that attorneys have gotten way beyond that. And, to the first point, they pled guilty to 4 counts. I think the reason that they went this route is I'll take it what they've said at face value that they don't want to put the kids through a trial. If you're going to try the case, the kids are going to have to go on the stand. So I think that's the answer to your question. There are a bunch of questions in this case, and I've noticed some confusion elsewhere in other channels. So there's 6 things I really, really, really want to go over right now. The first thing, and we just showed you where it says in this agreement, is that these sentences are going to be served consecutively. In other words, if sentences are concurrent, let's say that you, Laney Law, plead guilty to 4 counts. Each one is 1 year. If you serve them consecutively, you're serving them all at the same time. And for not turning your headlights on, it's only a year. If the judge says to you, "Oh no, Laney Law, we found not only your headlights, but your horn wasn't working. You ran the red light, and there's some other silly
I'm
thing.
on a wild, crazy journey."
So now your sentences are consecutive. That means you serve the first one. Okay, now you serve the second one. Now you serve the third one. Now you serve the fourth one. And that means you're serving 4 years. So there was some confusion I saw elsewhere that, are you sure yes, it's consecutive. The sentences are going to be served consecutive. She signed off to that. Neither one of them can back away from that. The next question I've seen is that she, and we just talked about this, she's admitted to all of the facts in the plea document. Her attorney's statement to the contrary has absolutely no legal significance. All of the details in those documents are signed off by her, and she has 12 years of undergrad school, 4 years of undergrad college, and then 3 years of graduate school. So no more talk about that. So the minimum sentence would be 4 years, 1 year on each count. We just talked about that. The maximum potential sentence is 60 years. That's 15 years on each of 4 counts. 4 times 15 is 60, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Do we often see the max sentence?
Well, depending on what happens in this sentencing, in this pre-sentencing investigation, it could happen. That 2 things about that. It goes to your previous question of by pleading, are they going to maybe get less than the maximum? And that's a possibility. We don't know. But the document said that no promises have been made. So the other point I have to make, and that is that there's been confusion elsewhere. She's not going to serve 60 years. This is the sentence. This is the sentence that the court metes out. This is not the amount of time she'll serve. Dun, dun,
Mhm.
dun. They're two different things. They're two different things in every jurisdiction. And Utah is a little bit different, and we'll look at that in a minute. But this is the sentence. And before we get there are no promises. This answers your last question. No promises have been made to Hildebrandt outside of the written plea document. Nothing outside the written signed document is legally valid. In other words, if she comes in later and says, "Oh, well, I didn't agree to a certain detail and I want, no, nuh-uh, no. It's all in the document. The court is not bound by any discussions between the attorneys, between the defendant, between anyone else, unless it is written and signed in this document. So that's that, as we say sometimes. Hildebrandt was a licensed clinical mental health counselor. We know that. You watched her a little bit on social media, didn't you?
Mhm.
Okay, so she voluntarily surrendered that license on September 19th, 2023. Her future is very what kind of a counselor was she? A relationship connection type of a counselor? Is that what she was?
Yeah, I don't know, she was like a mental health counselor, I believe. I know, like, how she surrendered her license, or that's the recent, but when she got, like, penalized and got her license, I think, suspended or something along those lines, it was because she was disclosing, client information and, like, making them, think that they had all these, I forget the exact word that she used, but, like, corruptions, basically, distortions, I forget exactly the term that she uses, but that needed to be corrected, so she was kind of, like, emotionally pressuring her clients and doing bad stuff in that regard.
Right. So now this is something that I've seen confusion on, and I already talked about the range of sentences. The minimum would be four 1-year consecutive sentences. The maximum would be 4 consecutive 15-year sentences, and we all know 4 times 15 is 60. That doesn't mean that's the amount of time she's going to serve. In most states, there are all kinds of incentives and aggravating factors, giving prisoners, incentive to behave or punishing them for not behaving. So this is the best. I'm licensed in New Hampshire and Massachusetts. This is the best I can derive from doing my research on the Utah system. The sentence does not equal the time served. The Utah Sentencing Commission has a mathematical formula for determining the exact amount of minimum time served. After that, the Utah Board of Pardons and Parole determines eligibility for release. So there's two different boards, two different entities in Utah that take a look at the sentence that comes out on printed paper from the court, or these days electronically as a PDF or whatever. These two commissions and boards then go, okay, all right, here's what's really going to happen. Generally, after the first minimum sentence, a prisoner will serve only 40% of the time after the first minimum sentence. And so
Mm.
people have put their heads together and said, in this case, Hildebrandt's minimum is not 4 years, but 39.6 months. So that's 3 years, 3 months, and a few days. So that's the actual minimum. But it's all according to what these two boards do. And nobody today can say what it'll be. Then that's the minimum. The maximum time for second-degree felonies is 30 years. In Washington County, Utah, the prosecutor, Eric Clark, took a little bit of guff for, dropping 2 of the charges from 6 felony counts to 4 felony counts. And he said there's really no difference if there's 15 counts, because the maximum someone is going to serve for stacked up felony counts is going to be 30 years. So it would make no difference. It would make no difference if it was 2 15-year sentences or a lot more. So that, I thought, was an interesting thing. And we're going to see what he has to say about this. This is responding to questions that people have had about all of this. The county attorney in Washington County, who actually negotiated this sentence
in Utah, the maximum penalty for second-degree felonies is 30 years. So if we had 15 counts, the maximum amount of time would have been 30 years. And each count carries a 1 to 15 years. So the difference in reality between 4 counts and 6 counts, in our calculation, wasn't enough to justify asking victims to go through a trial.
So that's the answer to a couple of questions. One is, why did they agree to this? But the other one is, what is the maximum sentence going to be? And that's the guy you're looking at right now, Attorney Clark, who signed the document. We saw that before. And he's also the one that, as far as we know, either he or his direct staff negotiated the plea agreement. So that's the story. I hope that those 6 points cleared up some confusion that people have had about this case. It's not over, though. The documents were signed, sealed, delivered, and accepted by the court in the closing days of 2023. In the beginning of 24, now, there's going to be an investigation, and in the middle of February, end of February, the 20th, the court will decide what the sentence will be. So I just have a feeling that we haven't heard the end of this case.
Yeah, that last point kind of helped, clear up my thoughts, which was going to be like, how did they drop, they dropped some, but, I guess it does make sense to agree that, like you said, it's just like, so they don't have to try the kids, and that it's not actually significant. The 30 years to me is crazy. To think that it wouldn't have made a significant difference, and that she really only has a chance of serving 30 years. Um, I know a lot of people, we were thinking that it was gonna be, twice that potentially, and it turns into her, I think the document said she was, like, in her 50s. I mean, even if she were to get the max deal, there's just a good chance she'd still be, around.
Well, yeah, remember, she's 54 years old, according to the documents. So if she served
Mhm.
the full 30 years, that takes her up to 84. So, I
Mhm.
mean, as someone who knows some people in that age range and maybe approaching that range at some point down the line,
Not for a while.
84, I mean, I'd rather be in my 50s than my 80s. So it's essentially a life sentence as far as I'm concerned. So that's pretty much, what's happening right now. I thought it was interesting that they entered into this very unusual plea agreement where she agreed to plead guilty, but there's an open-ended, you know, amount of the sentence. I mean, we just don't know what the sentence is going to be. And as I said, when I have represented defendants, you go to the client, and you say, all right, look, we're either going to plead guilty or we're going to admit to sufficient facts. And so it goes onto your record in different ways. But I know, and they ask me, well, is this going to go in my record? What's going to happen? Am I going to go away? Am I not going to go away? And it certainly depends on the case. If you forgot to turn your headlights on, they're certainly not going to throw you in jail. But, more serious cases, I had a motor vehicle homicide case one time where my client was found guilty, but the sentence was suspended. We worked something out. And so even though there was a guilty finding, we worked something out with the court. And so it was suspended. And to the client, that's almost as good as being found not guilty. Not really, because it still goes on his record. But he's not serving any time. So my point is that usually an attorney goes to the client and tells them, look, I can save you the uncertainty of a trial, because you never know. No trial attorney is being honest if they tell you they know exactly what's going to happen in that trial. There's always a risk for both sides. So if I go to a client and I say, if you enter a plea of guilty or nolo or admit to sufficient facts, here's the sentence. I can't imagine going to a client and saying, hey, client, plead guilty to this. I don't know what's going to happen. They're going to say, what? They're going to say, what? So it's an unusual agreement, and we're all going to have to stay tuned. I'm not even going to guess. People say, well, how long do you think? Well, I don't think, because there's going to be this pre-sentencing investigation, and who knows what'll happen there.
Do you think, I have to wonder, because she had those issues with her professional license and professional misconduct, is that's not going to be able to play into this at all, right? Because I don't know if there was any legal beyond losing her license. If it had any, she didn't go to court or anything about it, I don't think.
A, not directly. B, I'd be shocked if she ever gets her license back. But C, the things that a court will, or the other people that are involved in the pre-sentencing investigation, look at a range of different factors, aggravating factors, mitigating factors. Oh, she's done a lot of good in the community. She actually does not have a criminal record. So the fact that she does have those previous issues with the license that you mentioned, that could be argued that that is an aggravating factor. So it could play in. Yeah, I see that as a kind of minor thing. I think much more important will be, the conduct that we sort of skipped over. We did talk about it in the other case, the Ruby Frankie case, but I don't think the licensure is a big thing. And certainly, I think that's the least of our problems, don't you?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, don't expect her to be able to practice, or I hope that she's not going to be able to practice and do, what she's done. But it is interesting to know that something like that could play into her sentencing potentially, and like how they look at the grand scope of things. I'm
Yep.
curious because you mentioned, like, oh, she's done like some, they could look at someone and theoretically go, oh, they've done like a lot of good in the community. I wonder how something like that could apply to her, because that was like her whole thing is, you know, being involved in her community, whether, it's perceived for better or for worse. But I'm wondering um what other people, you know, what their opinions would be in that community about her, and how much other people would be willing to vouch for her character.
Well, I think, as you know, there have been other allegations, and they are only allegations, so I'm not going to get into them here. But there have been other allegations of her conduct, and I'm talking about the defendant we're talking about today. There have been other allegations in other cases with other children. So certainly that's something the prosecution might point out. Certainly that's something that the other people might point out. I think more telling and more relevant will be these two kids. We're talking about a young man who's 12, and a girl who was 9 or 10. I think 9 when some of this happened, and 10 by the time it was over. I think more interesting to the court in their pre-sentencing investigation will be exactly what the impact was on these young children, what type of counseling they're going to have to go through for a long time, if not the rest of their lives. Physical damages, mental damages, emotional damages. We didn't really get into that too much in the document, but the document does specify emotional harm that was done not only to each of the children, the young boy and the young girl, but also from having seen the other one tortured. So I think
Mhm.
that's the most relevant thing. I think that'll be the most relevant thing, how those kids are doing and what their prognosis will be, if any.
Yeah, I wanna say, especially because I can't remember what source it was exactly, but so everything that I'm about to take here, viewers, take with a grain of salt, because I just saw this randomly when I was Googling. But I believe the kids are in like foster care, and I believe the people taking care of them had made a comment, or maybe it would, someone was saying that these kids still think that they did something to deserve what happened to them, and that the things that they went through were just, which I thought was, sad, and just sad, to see.
Yeah, the part of it was that there was this, and I'm not going to mention what religion, because what happened in this case has nothing to do with any religion, and particularly this one. So I'm not even going to mention it. But I mean, there were some overtones to those children that they were bad and they were sinners and they had to pay for their sins. And this whole idea. I mean, I'm not a theologist, far from it. I'm not a religious leader, far from it. But to tell little impressionable kids in their formative years that they're sinners and that they have to pay, and there's fire and there's brimstone. I mean, to constantly harangue on those kinds of things. Again, I don't want to disparage all religion, and I don't want to paint with a broad brush, but oh my God, how does that impact, a little kid for the rest of their lives? I mean, I have memories of being a kid and going to church, and I have fond memories of going to church and the good things that we did. I mean, we actually did do stuff for the communities, and we went to other people's churches and learned about their churches, and we engaged in community activities, and it was a really positive thing. And again, I don't want to disparage any particular religion, because I don't think it has anything to do with religion. I think it has to do with people that have issues themselves, and they project them into other people. And I had mentioned in the previous podcast that there had, I question all of these self-help people. You go online and you see everything on in social media. I go into the bookstore and there's a huge section of self-help books. Who are these people telling me how to self-help myself? I know that if I want to lose weight, I got to go to the gym more and eat healthy. I know that if I want to be a spiritual person, I have to be more reflective. I know all of that. I don't need some idiot who writes a book to tell me that. And I think that's kind of, it's just, who are these people? I mean, who was Jodi Hildebrandt and Ruby Franke? Who were they? I mean, what qualified them? So what? She has a license. So what? That doesn't mean anything to me.
And
So-
I agree with that too, where it's just like not only can anyone write a book, but you're right, it's just like, I mean, theoretically, anyone can get a license for anything if you just do something for long enough. That was like one of my concerns with college at first. It's just like I don't want to just go to college, get a degree to get a degree originally, because anybody can, you just stick something out for 4 years. But even with like the self-help, I mean, obviously there's some people who go through a lot of school and do a lot of research and figure out a lot of stuff. But more often than not, a lot of the books that I've read are just, from normal people who may be very firm in their own opinions of the matter, but a lot of the times come off kind of uneducated. And I think that to a degree, I mean, there's the obvious things that people can do to kind of help themselves. Like you said, if you're going to if you want to lose weight, work out, go to the gym, eat healthier. But a lot of people will paint it kind of like, oh, here's this unique truth to this. And there's really nothing. And I think a lot of it is like, if you're trying to put your beliefs on other people, you got some issues. You got like, obviously we're here on a podcast, we're just chit chatting, and the people who watch this point hopefully find this entertaining and understand that what we say is
opinion. It's our opinions.
it's our opinions. Exactly.
Yeah, but these people that hold themselves up as better than us, I think it's all rubbish. I really do. I mean, it's hard having children, and it's hard raising a family. It's hard. It's very difficult, to have children. And, I know for a fact that the hospitals and the healthcare providers try to help people find resources. All the hospitals have social service people, and if they don't, most people can find them. There are community groups that are out there to help young mothers and to help families. So if there are people out there that are being critical of what I'm saying, you can find some community groups that are there, that are social groups that are there for you to find and to vet out. Somebody says, well, this group helped me. Well, you can ask some other people and find out. These people on the internet that write books, I don't know who they are. I think it's all rubbish. I think much of it is rubbish. I know I'm going to get comments for that, but it reminds me of many years ago. I worked at a TV station, and occasionally I had a shift where I had to be in there early in the morning, and we're talking 5 o'clock in the morning. I had to be in there because we did the cut-ins for one of the early morning news shows. So I was there early in the morning, and before most people were watching the TV, there were these televangelists. And I'm like, who are these guys? Just like, blah, 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 blah. And I had a gut feeling, and I'm not judging anybody now. I'm just telling you a story. All right. This is my story, my experience, my opinion. But I had a gut feeling that both of these televangelists were frauds. And sure enough, they both had the first name James or Jim, and they both ended up cheating on their wives. And one of them was convicted for fraud because he was stealing all the money from his congregation. So, I
Oh
mean,
my
you know,
God.
self-help is fine. Self-help is fine, and we all need it. God knows I need more spirituality, and I need to lose weight, and I need to all those things, and that's great. But there's a lot of frauds out there that are just, so this is just a general conversation. But these cases are an example of what can go wrong. And if you're going to look up to someone, if you're going to look up to some human individual or group, vet it, because there's some really great ones out there. I've been a part of some great ones. Vet it. But these people that just are out there, giving this crazy advice, I think it's all rubbish.
I agree with that. And I think that, something that people watching should keep in mind, and just everyone in general, share this timestamp with anybody you think might benefit from this. But the people that really want you to succeed are going to want to teach you. They're going to be the ones to teach you, whether it be in a spiritual group, they're going to teach you how to have better relationships with your family, and how to actually do things, versus I think there's a lot of people out there who say they have all the answers and that they should be followed, but aren't really helping people achieve, their best self. I think, like, for me personally, as someone with like a wide skill set, me and my friends, we help each other learn. It's not trying to take, like, and we'll explain things and help people be able to do things on their own, versus saying, oh, I have these answers, do this, 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 and this will happen. That might not be related to it. I think that there's a difference with trying to teach people how to take care of themselves and to help themselves, versus trying to train people to always come back to you for guidance.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
putting
My
yourself on that.
final thought before we get all these nasty comments for my going way off topic, and we're way off topic now, but my final topic is the grocery store where I go sometimes has a bin of books at the end, where you pay $1. They're all books that people have, they don't want anymore. So they take and they throw them in there. And if they're donating the books. And if you want a book, you donate $1 if it's a paperback, or $5 if it's a hardback. Most of them are self-help books. So, I read a great one. One of the best books I ever read a couple of summers ago was I found in the bin was The Life Story of Keith Richards. What a story that was. But anyhow, most of the books that people toss out in the garbage or the rubbish are self-help books. So that's my final thought. What's yours?
All right. So my final thought, obviously thank you everybody who watched this for the Jodi Hildebrandt. Leave your comments down below. Please, our last video got suppressed. We want to do videos on other topics other than Coburg. So Coburger. So please, if you made it this far, let us know. But back on the self-help topic, just to finish that out, my friend that reads the most self-help books and works the hardest on trying to self-improve is one of my most disconnected friends, who has no idea what the empathy with other people. If you're trying to enrich your life and be a good source, like be a good energy in this world, the most important thing you can do to take care of yourself and the others in your life, instead of, listening to all these gurus, reading all these books, is just try to be empathetic, listen to the people in your life. You don't need someone to teach you how to, obviously other parents can help, but at the end of the day, you're going to have a better relationship with your kid if you're listening to your kids' feelings. Obviously, as a kid, they're not always getting there reasonably, but just by trying to be empathetic, listen, and understanding how people's emotions works in the world around you, there's a lot of good you can do. Thank you so much for watching our show, and remember to keep your loved ones close and some gurus very, very, very far. So thank you guys for watching this episode of About the Law.
Amen, sister. I agree with everything you just said. And if anyone in our audience can identify the picture that's behind us this episode, let us know. Nobody's going to get it because you only see a part of it. So again, amen, sister. That was, I agree with everything you said. Please, folks, give us all the comments you have, the ideas you have for future episodes. And please remember to like and subscribe. You have been watching About the Law, a production of the law offices of Andrew D. Myers in Methuen in the Merrimack Valley of Massachusetts and in Derry, just outside of Manchester, New Hampshire. Remember to click the like and subscribe buttons down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to share it with your friends and others. If you'd like to talk to me about an injury case, a car accident, a slip and fall, a serious bodily injury case, or some other case, please feel free to contact me. I'd love to talk to you. You can contact us through my website at attorney-myers.com. We have a contact us block, or you can call on one of the telephone numbers we've given there, or you can email me at andrew@attorney-myers.com. The foregoing is offered for informational purposes only. It is not intended as and does not constitute legal advice. Laws vary widely from state to state. You should rely only on the advice given to you during a personal consultation by a local attorney thoroughly familiar with state laws and the area of practice in which your concern lies. This podcast must be and hereby is labeled advertisement in some jurisdictions.
And that's that.
That.